All right, we are on.
My take
Yes.
is a comedian is not a comedian because a comedian is funny. A comedian is a comedian because of the desire to write things down that occur to them and perhaps those around them that the comedian understands to be funny.
Sure.
And a comedian is a comedian because of the desire to work on the elicitation of the reaction of laughter in a controlled way.
Well,
So I just want to say, because you said that you get pissed off when people are funnier than you. Well, you can edit that out.
No.
I mean, I know, because now I said it and I'm like sounding like I threw you under the bus. But I meant it just for context. Like, and I think so many people in my life who are not comedians are so much funnier than me. I am in a group chat. I am one of 7 women in this group chat. We've been friends. 2 of us have been friends since first grade.
Okay.
Me and Shira. And then I'm not even going to mention their names beyond that because it's like they're so private.
Yeah.
That they're like, okay, anyway, the thing I was going to say, and then others from high school and others from college.
Sure.
Okay. And we could do the Venn diagram of how everybody comes in and whatever. It'll be hilarious. But anyway, is like each of them is funnier than me.
Yeah.
Each of them in their own separate ways. I am not even close. Like the fact that I'm 7th funniest is just because I'm in the chat. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's a comedian, but I'm a comedian because I have the crazy lunacy of wanting to write it down and figure it out for the purpose of presenting it to the public.
Absolutely.
They are confident, funny people who are like, and this lives just here. And that's like a sane reaction.
Right.
And so that's why being a comedian, it's like, no, I'm not the funny. You think I'm the funniest in my family? You have another thing coming. My father said almost nothing and could get a laugh. My mother lands perfect stories. You know, recently I realized that she does workshop material because I mean, I'm very close with my mother. I have been since I was forever. It's why I'm gay. Hot take. So anyway, but I'm kidding. She's going to listen to this and be like, is that why you're gay? Which is going to be funny. It's going to be funny. She is so funny. But anyway, the thing I was going to say is that despite the fact that like we're very close and we're, you know, it's like people like, how often are you on the phone with your mother? I'm like, the fact that I'm not currently on the phone with her is the notable detail. Like, it's like I was talking to her on the way here. I'll talk to her right after. I'll tell her how this went, you know, whatever. We talk a lot. We're very close. We have been for always. And I'm extremely grateful for that. So, but like, I realized we recently, even though we're so close, we don't often spend a whole day and night together. But we had a family bat mitzvah that my wife and my daughter couldn't come. So it's me and my mom in Connecticut. And I love nothing more than logistics. And here's the thing. Okay, a comedian is not a comedian because they're funny. I would say arguably like I could have been a travel agent, but I chose comedian because here's the thing is like if you do comedy at a level where you know, you're not like booking arenas and people are behind it and all that. Like if you're at a level where you're booking your own stuff and all that, I think it helps to love it.
Sure.
And I love nothing more than the Tetris of like, where'd you park? How'd you get there? Which, you know, New Jersey Transit is $8.25 or now it's $8.30 versus the path is like, what is it, $2.75 or it went up? Did it go up?
I think it's still $2.75.
$2.75. So we're holding it $2.75 versus the subway, you know, and I love every single detail of that. And so when I had this family bat mitzvah in Connecticut, I'm like, well, I'm going to book shows in Connecticut that night.
Yeah.
Because I really love nothing more than like figuring that out. I'm looking at my calendar 6 weeks ahead of time, you know, all that. So anyway, so I had booked 3 shows. And this was actually before my mother was coming to the bat mitzvah. So I was like, Mommy, I have 3. I'm like spot hopping. And she's like, okay, well, I'll get us a hotel in Connecticut. So anyway, so we're going to be together all day. Turned out we did need the hotel because I did get a flat tire, which was not in my plan.
No.
It's fine. It was actually fine. No, I
was just going to ask, like, so in other words, I'm going
to be speaking for this entire podcast, Matt.
I am not allowed to interject at all.
I realized I'm like, I don't think he said like 3 words.
What's so funny is typically we kick off. I do a little introduction, a little compliment, but I love that we are just hopping right in.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I love it so much. With the flat tire being so planned and calculated.
Yeah.
How do you react in that situation? Does it get to you, or do you see it as like a challenge?
Oh, I'm amazing at it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, because
I should have known.
Also, I'm Liz Glazer. This is The Low Point with Matt Penna. And we're coming. What else do you say in the intro?
No, that we're coming to you from Symposium Bookstore in
We
Hoboken.
are in Hoboken.
Liz is a favorite here. She brings down the house every time she comes here.
Oh my God! No, I feel like I was only fine. I honestly,
Liz,
I really, no. You think I haven't been thinking about it the whole time?
Stop! Oh my, no. And this is the last thing I'll say because I do want to get back to this.
And
it's incredible.
This is my podcast. That is the last thing you'll say.
I'm so sorry to be so rude on your podcast. I was in the back with the owner Carmen Russo, who's a wonderful. Her really mission statement behind this bookstore is community. It's to build community. She's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I remember we were in the back, and sometimes she'll see me give people the light, and I gave you the light, and she goes, no. She told me to put the light down so that you could finish and that you could go.
But I don't think I was I remember when I was here, and this is going to be the least interesting thing because like me reflecting on how I did, like literally nobody cares, and not even me. But I feel like that was probably less about my doing well and more about me being in the middle of something.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No.
So I just want to say, like, that's very nice. And the community of the bookstore. I mean, what's better than that? Literally.
I know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, back to parking.
The flat tire. Yes.
So flat tire. Oh, yes. I'm amazing at that kind of a moment. And actually, that can get into some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Sure.
Okay. This is the low point. We're talking about a low point in people's lives, and my wife and I had a stillbirth, which honestly, that's probably the funniest way I've ever brought it up. It's like, listen, we'll get to the stillbirth in a second. Let me do a flat tire thing, and I wanted to talk about how much I love travel logistics and comedy. And I did want to I was on the way to making a point about my mother workshopping stories, okay? But there will be stillbirth as part of this. But the reason I'm bringing it up in this second is because my wife and I experienced a stillbirth. It was devastating.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think there's any kind of grief Olympics or, horror Olympics or whatever that phrase is, but it was bad. Mm-hmm. And it was a low point. And whenever there's like a prompt of any kind of like, what was a terrible thing that happened in your life that you learned from, I do think of that.
Yeah.
And it happened to me in 2021. It's now 2025, so it was 4 years ago. I do think I've been on a journey for longer than 4 years to get to a place of being okay with a flat tire. That said, a stillbirth helps, okay? Because having something like that, even though I would never, if somebody has a stillbirth and they're devastated about it, I am with you in your experience because I really believe that the experience of devastation is just that, right? Like I remember, for acting, I was in an acting class. I've been in acting class. I love acting class. I hesitate to say I'm an actor, not that I'm not, but I've been in acting class. But I remember I thought I lost my keys at a time when I was like new in acting class. Mm-hmm. And I had this moment of like, oh my God, what happened to my keys? And then I was like, oh, that moment of like, where the hell are my keys?
Yeah.
Is actually the same sort of moment of shock from an acting emotional standpoint in terms of surprise, in terms of what the hell, where are they, as who's there, right? And I don't mean that to minimize someone's experience of something else, but I think like exercising in acting, right? Like doing the work of that or getting familiar with like what is the emotional experience of something that you can call upon in a real way, right? Can elucidate that the emotional experiences of things that your sort of left brain tells you it's rude to make equivalent to each other, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but they can be emotionally, right? So anyway, but that's a tangent because I'm saying for somebody for whom the flat tire is the end of the world, I'm like, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But I also have had the life experience, stillbirth as part of, right? Stay tuned. And also 19 years of therapy.
Right.
A career change. I'm 45 years old. My grandparents survived the Holocaust. My parents are lunatics who I love. I mean, my dad's dead. So but I use present tense. Okay. Because I don't believe he died. No, I don't know. I just, because it's like weird to then switch around tenses and stuff.
No, of course. I just want to say you're the perfect podcast guest.
Really?
Because you covered it has one of the challenges with this has been to how do we get into, right? Because I want to introduce the guest in a way that the audience kind of knows them.
Oh yeah, step aside. I got it.
I know. I love this so much, and this is one of the reasons why.
Thank you. You're generous.
I love you,
Matt.
and
I love you.
Oh, you're Liz. One of the things is I think we met via
my mom.
That means so much to me as a fellow. Because here's the thing, is like I was brought up Catholic, but my mother is Jewish. So when I tell Jewish people that my mother's Jewish, they're like, we get it. You know what I mean? They're like, it's fine.
True.
So that is all to say. We met, I think, originally on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think we followed each other or something. And we had, when you have those conversations with someone, even over text, and you just immediately, you're like, oh, we get each other.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like one of those. So it's just,
I agree.
It was so wonderful to get to know you and all this. Just
the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, we covered so much in the first 10 minutes. I want to kind of break it down a little bit.
Sure.
So
please.
I do want to finish the story about the flat tire.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that spending the day with my mother, when we were at the bat mitzvah and then we were somewhere in the middle of the day because there was like a part of the day between the bat mitzvah and the spots, and I had 3 spots. I was doing New York Comedy Club Stamford early and late, and then because I'm insane, I was like, ooh, I think there's a Don't Tell in Norwalk.
Very nice, yeah.
And so then I could do my set, go to the Don't Tell, come back. And originally my mom was like, well, I don't think I'm going to want to come to all of that. And then the day of, she's like, I would like to come to all 3 shows. I'm like, that's so nice, but like, why? But anyway, so, she's hanging out in the green room. She's like, figuring out the coffee maker.
I love.
But she had such a good time, and we both had such a good time. But all of this to say that I got to be with my mother in the rare occasion in my 40s all day around different groups of people, where I don't remember the story that it was, but she was like telling the same story to like at least 3 different groups of people. And I'm like, oh, she's tightening this bit.
And it's so, oh my God, when you see it like happen naturally.
Totally.
Too. And now would you say like which parent did you get your comedy side from? Was it your mom? Or?
Yeah, my mom. I mean, I wish I got my comedy from my dad, because I think my journey in comedy would have been way easier.
Oh, that's interesting.
If it was through my dad, because my dad is so funny and it's just him. Like that's like, do you know the comedian Robbie Hoffman? Do you know who that is? Yeah. So Robbie is now like super famous and deserves every part of that. And also Robbie is a dear friend of mine, or at least I'm led to believe. And so you never know. But anyway, the thing that I say, and Robbie, I remember when we've had conversations, has said, she's like, classes above me in comedy, but she's always said that like she was lucky enough to find her voice really quickly. And not that it hasn't been refined. I mean, she's an incredible comedian. And also, if you're hanging around Robbie, that's Robbie. That's Robbie on the phone. It's Robbie on stage. And again, like maybe there's a part of Robbie that I don't know, but like that's my sense of it from my interaction with her, and also from like mutual friends. It's like people like adore her because she's extremely talented and a great writer and all that. But I think part of it is because that is how she is and who she is. Yeah. So all of this to say, first of all, my father, when I first met Robbie, I was like, oh, it's my dad in like a lesbian peer friend of mine, which is interesting and different. And my dad, who would never have pursued comedy. Yeah. He was an actor. He was apparently because he immigrated from Latvia.
Okay.
By way of Israel before New York.
Okay.
And so when he was in Israel, and I would find this out later in life, I guess he was in a movie in Israel, but I don't know, like, how do I find the movie or, whatever. I've tried, but then it sort of is like a little bit of a dead end rabbit hole I've found anyway. But, whatever. If somebody wants to like do that research assistance, then I'm open to it. But in any event, so I guess he was sort of a performer is my point. Mm-hmm. But, for the most part, like he worked, right? He was a dad and he worked, but he was so naturally just like devastatingly himself, which when he wasn't trying was hilarious. And so I'm like the Mark from Rent in my life and family for sure. And so for as long as I can really like remember technology being accessible in one's hand, I've conditioned my family to think it was normal for me to film them.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't post it.
No,
like
of course.
I'm not that.
Right.
But like not performative, but just like I will just be filming brunch.
Yeah.
And I think it was just this kind of like weird thing that happened at some point where it's like, ugh, Elizabeth's just doing a weird thing. But I'm very grateful, even though sometimes I feel like, did I do something wrong by conditioning them that way? But then, when my dad died, it was just so valuable.
Say, you must have so many wonderful videos. Do you ever watch it back with your family?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, what's funny is I made like a compilation when he died. And it's funny because like when someone dies, you have to like edit out the stuff that's, well, for my dad, because he wasn't a comedian. That's the difference, too. A comedian, it's, again, I don't think it's about being funny necessarily. Of course, that's part of it. But, like, that's the hotness of the take. But I think it's about desiring that your ugliest parts, like, shine as well.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
But, like, a non-comedian doesn't want that because they're not crazy. And my dad, obviously, wouldn't have wanted some of the stuff where, I think I have like my dad on the phone with somebody being like, he's ugly or like something. And it's like, he's just like bashing someone on the phone. And, that stuff, I wish I had I have one where my dad, very recalcitrant guy. Mm-hmm. And just, he grew up in Soviet Russia, who can blame him? But like, he hated the feature in a car that the beeping with the seatbelt.
Oh, God.
So, like this person, when I think of like describing his character, he would drive with the beeping. It never stopped the whole time. Beeping.
Was it like a stance against it? Like,
yes.
Oh, my God.
and like that person is hilarious if they also choose comedy, because if that person chooses comedy, they've got a voice. They're not, there's no developing. Like, you're there. All your opinions. You're so set in that. And my mother has great timing. She is affable. She's fun. She's the person you want to talk on the phone for hours with.
Right.
And I feel like I'm that person, at least to some people. I'm not saying I'm for everybody, but like, I have that. I have like, I like talking.
Sure.
But my dad, I wouldn't say that was the way.
Right.
But
definitely.
Robbie, by the way, excellent talker. I just want to, now that I've made this sort of equivalency, then I also want to be fair.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
No,
so,
absolutely. Was it something, and I might be projecting here, but like for me, when I think back, right, laughter was how I felt close with my mom, especially. So
I relate to that very much.
I just like, I'll still... There's a part of me, in the same way, we have a very good relationship where sometimes I'll like run jokes that I'm working on by her.
Sure.
And God, when they don't hit, it hurts differently.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. It's
but is it the thing where because she thinks you're amazing and hilarious, I'm sure. I mean, A, you are.
That's very,
and
thank
B,
you. That's very nice.
I'm imagining, given the closeness of your relationship, that she does.
Yes. You know what it is? My mom, I think, I think in that same way, I think she does think very highly of me.
Yeah.
But I think it's that she sets that standard higher than because of it.
Oh, yeah,
which is good in a way, because then I get to, I also set that for myself.
Sure.
Which, has its drawbacks and obviously, and good points as well.
Right.
But I remember I was very fortunate. I got to open for Gabe Malika which I texted you as my first road gig. Very exciting.
Yes.
It went great.
Congrats.
Thank you so much, Liz. I was so excited to tell you.
Love Gabe. I taught his dad.
Yes, he told me that in the car ride home. That's so nuts. Was he a good student?
His dad, yeah.
That's awesome.
I think specifically he did really well on the final, if I'm not making that up.
That's so I remember. I'm so glad you brought that up, because he was like, "Who do you have coming on the pod?" I was like, "Liz." He's like, "Oh my God, that's so nuts."
Yeah.
Such
That's like
world.
No matter anything I'll ever do in comedy will not top that credit of mine for Gabe. And I love that. It's so funny. Yeah.
It's so crazy. And it was over at Hofstra, right?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to talk about it, or like?
Yeah,
because I used to dive over at Hofstra. I was
really?
A diver there. Yes, I used to be there all the time.
I can't dive.
Stop.
Do you want to do a video where you teach me to dive? Do you want to do that?
Like off a springboard and stuff?
Well, wherever.
I can't. I mean, I could try.
You were a diver. Of course you could do it.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's like 80% mental. I will say.
Fine.
It's like talking about it.
But like,
I'm in.
Okay, but what if I think that would be a good video.
Sure, 100%.
Okay, so let's do that.
That would be fun.
That because I don't know how to dive. Because now I'm swimming.
Are you swimming? I didn't know.
Okay. Well, okay, so now I do. I'm not a triathlete, I guess. But I did a sprint triathlon, which sounds like it might be faster, but it's not if it's me. It's just like last triathlon. But in any event, there's swimming as part of it.
Yeah.
My daughter is like, 1.5, and then she was younger and whatever. I was like, we should get her in swim lessons. People, whatever. So she was in swim, and I don't know what it is about me. It's like you want to see life through your child's eyes, and if you have enough time, you also want to have the same schedule as your child. Because I was like, well, she's in swim, I'm not doing anything.
You're like, I'm here watching anyway.
So I take swim at a school that is like I believe all the students are children except for me.
No way.
And this happened. So my lesson's at noon on Wednesday because I'm a lady of leisure. And so then her lesson's at 5 because she is a full-time working woman at daycare. And so anyway, you watch the lesson. That's how the lesson goes. Right. So it's like, this instructor or whatever and take you around. And anyway, when I would take my lesson, there was like a few people around, right? Children taking lessons, like fewer of them than at 5. 5 is like child salad in the pool, but 12, there's like a few. Anyway, so I see this baby. He was a baby. Okay.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, I was like, oh, I know that guy. And she's like, who? And she thought I meant one of the instructors is a comic or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that baby he used to take lessons at noon on Wednesday. I know that baby. He's my colleague. Okay. And she's like, that's crazy.
That is so.
Yeah.
This is a fault I have. My good friend Catherine Duffy reminds me all the time. She was just on the episode. Do you do that on stage?
I've done a little, like, so I love, I call them sweatpants shows.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
And I bet you can kind of tell, like, not a mic, but it's
like
a little lower stakes or whatever. Sure. And I like to pepper into my sketch a few sweatpants shows because I think, I guess, you could say new material show, but sometimes a new material show is like, I don't know, it's a little too structured for, I need somewhere where I can be going on a tear and I can just slip something in.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't plan to do that, but it was like the week that happened and I had a sweatpants show.
Sure.
And and it came out, and then like
that's
people
great.
liked it.
I was going to say that's really
thank you.
No, of course. I do that so much to like to where comedians are like, all right, we don't have to be on all the time.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I feel very strongly about not being on for most of the time.
Can we talk more about that? That's super interesting.
We sure can, because I think it may come from having had another whole, like, not just job, but like identity and life trajectory. So I used to be a law professor, just, you know, and I don't say that to brag, but I do because my mother requires me to say it wherever I go. No, but I just mean it because it's such a particular kind of like life that one devotes oneself to in terms of like mentally.
Yeah.
You know, similar, I guess, to being a comic. Like, if you're really serious about being a comic, again, I keep coming back to this initial point. Like, it's not about the being funny. It's about the devoting one's life to like having this filter where, you know, the sieve in your head is committed to catching things that you believe would bring joy to people on command and on demand. And so similarly, I think legal academia has that element to it, not about being funny, but about, you know, the theory of like justice and law and stuff. And I think because it's that, that was part of why I ultimately departed from it, because it, like, people are like, oh, you must have hated it. I'm like, no, I didn't.
That's really interesting.
Because it's like a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I mean, people like other professors, it's like, listen, I will have the hot take of, you get the summers off. Any academic who's listening to this is like, she said what? But you do, and I've seen you in the summer. I have visited your alpaca farm. I know you smoke a lot of weed. Like, you're off in the summer. I don't care what lie you're telling yourself. You're off in the summer. But anyway, that said, there is an intensity to being an academic, not just legal, any kind of academic, because it's sort of like you're devoting your life to thinking about things in a particular way. So anyway, I noticed that everybody else seemed to be more into it than I was.
That's okay.
And the problem with that is that I love being into stuff. Yeah. And I love when other people are into it. Like, I recently, I was at a show, and there was like a bunch of people who were really into WrestleMania. And like, are you into WrestleMania?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. I just don't even know of this at all. Like, I'm aware of Hulk Hogan.
Right. I mean,
and I knew Ric Flair because I knew the guy, Doug Maxwell, who scored the 30 for 30 documentary. And so I watched it because our friend did the music. Okay. Which is like the least wrestly reason to watch anything about wrestling. I know the composer. Oh, you're not here for the music?
Just as an outsider, I'm surprised there is music.
Yeah. Well, it's Doug is really good. And,
of course. Yeah.
And like, you know, he's very talented, obviously. I mean, he's working, you know, on a 30 for 30 document, you know, whatever. But anyway, so I was at this show, and this guy is like, we're really into WrestleMania. We watch it a lot in the green room. I was like, okay. And I said to him, well, I love being like brought into a world where people are really into something. And that's true because like I'm not, but I think that's fun. But I think like, whereas in that situation, it was very clearly beside the point. Like, it was a comedy show, but then for fun, in between sets, there's going to be WrestleMania on.
Right.
And the guy, by the way, was apologizing. He was like, I'm so sorry. It's just like what we do. And I'm like, no, I think it's great. Like, I don't know. You know, what am I going to do? Like, text? Like, it doesn't matter. But in my job, I was just looking around, and I was like, everybody like loves this. And I have the capacity, this was my thought, to love my work this much. I just don't have this capacity to love this much.
Yeah.
And then I started searching for like, well, what could I love? What did I like to do? And, I went back to like things I did to have fun. And it wasn't for me this like, obsession with stand-up comedy, or wasn't like watching SNL, like obsessively. It wasn't that. It wasn't being a comedy fan. It was like, I don't know, pranking people with my friends and like enjoying stuff like that, like while I was having to write a paper or something like that. And so I think because I had it pretty good in the sense, like I was a practicing lawyer, which I have love for my time as a practicing lawyer, and I have love for law firms and legal practice of all. I really do. It's like I come by it very earnestly, and I was pretty sure that wasn't my passion, right? Like I was like, I'm not going to be like a partner at a law firm or something like that. But then once I got into like academia, I was like, well, this feels a little bit closer. Mm-hmm. So why isn't it doing it for me?
Yeah.
Right? And that was really the soul searchy moment of like, okay, well maybe. And then I took an improv class when, I happened to be visiting away from Hofstra. That at that point I was visiting at Loyola Chicago, and I had gone to the University of Chicago for law school, so I was aware of the improv scene and that there were classes and all the rest of it. And so I was like, well, maybe I could enroll in one of those classes when I'm visiting at another school, because you have like far less obligations when you're visiting. Like you have to teach and write, but you don't have to do like committee work, and you kind of don't work there.
And this is during that exploratory period where you're just like trying to find.
I was like, I just think that there's something like kind of missing.
What else did you try? I'm so curious.
Oh, just that.
Just that. Okay.
Yeah, and drugs. but like mostly it was that. And I loved improv like so much. Do you love improv?
I do. I don't get this divide between stand-ups and improv, because to me also too, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but like I think improv definitely helps stand up so much.
Yeah.
I guess they're like
Joan Rivers said.
Yeah, I just like
everything is improv.
I know, and it's so fun. Oh my God.
Yeah, so my engagement with improv was never like, I didn't like, go through even all the levels. I didn't make a house team or anything like that. I had this limited time because I was at Loyola Chicago for a semester, which was enough time, I think, for levels 1 and 2 at the old IO Improv Olympic when it was still on Wrigley, like next to Wrigley Field.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And I loved it. And I loved it so much. And you were encouraged to take to attend shows, and I started going every night.
I love that. Yeah.
And like I remember, so TJ and Dave, do you know about TJ and Dave?
It sounds so familiar.
It's like they're amazing. And they're this like legendary improv group. There's 2 guys, and there's a documentary made about them. It's called Trust Us, This Is All Made Up.
Oh, yeah.
I cry every time. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. It's amazing. And Ray from Girls, what's his name? I don't remember.
Is it Adam Driver?
No, it's
different guy.
Not Adam Driver.
Okay.
That's his name, not Adam Driver. I just forget his name. It's something Russian, but he made that documentary.
Oh, you're kidding. Very cool.
I'm not, actually.
I have to check.
Yeah. As it turns out, I'm totally serious.
I need to check this out.
It's good. Yeah, I watch it like it's one of my like frequent rewatches. It really gets me going. But anyway, so TJ and Dave, used to do a show at 10:15 every Wednesday night, and it would sell out every week, and it was only like literally $5, but you had to buy the tickets like right when you were leaving the last show. You bought the ones for the next week, or else they would sell out.
Oh my God.
And so I would go every week during that semester, and there's such like, I love thinking about that semester. I mean, yeah, it was a really great time. But like the coziness of it's obviously like frigid. And then I'm like going out, to these shows and just like really taking in the improv. I loved it so much. And the thing that I loved about it was that it was rooted in truth.
Yes.
Right? So like Del Close, Sharna Halpern, truth in comedy, that was the whole basis. And that I think is exactly the reason that I totally agree with you about the divide between stand-up and improv being this fallacy.
Yeah.
Because what is stand-up if not truth in comedy?
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And it's it reminds me, Because one of my questions I was going to ask you is like, what is the biggest lesson like you took from improv? But it sounds like it is this lesson about truth.
Yeah, it totally was. I mean, and also like at that time, and this took a lot for me. And I mean, honestly, goes back to the flat tire all over again.
I love it, bringing it back.
Is that I mean, now I'm like, are we in a Herald structure? Like, 'cause we're bringing it back. But anyway, so initially, I don't want to lose it. It was one of those, those thoughts that are like, they're amazing. And then it's like, wait, was I high? But was I just now high? It was a thing where I was really defensive.
Okay.
Because I think that was required to exist in my family. Because this is going to be me blaming it on my dad. And it's not that I'm blaming it on my dad. I'll blame it on like Soviet Russia or whatever, like the Holocaust, like whatever kind of trauma,
Sure.
like my parents, when they were parents to young children, it was a stressed out zone, I think. And I think that one's vulnerability in that house was not like encouraged.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so any kind of like you had to be defensive in order to survive.
Yeah.
And I think my parents were defensive with each other, and maybe that was because they were stressed or whatever it was. It was just like my real like home as far as emotional and language was like this defending oneself thing. And I think that the yes and mentality,
I was just going to bring it back to that. Yeah.
Was so revolutionary to me, because having this idea that like interesting things would happen and I could trust that, and brilliant insights would arise and I could trust that too, as long as I just said yes.
Yes.
Right?
And you know what's so beautiful about that too? You bring up something, you brought up trust.
Yeah.
Which I love. And there's this beautiful game in improv.
Yeah.
I will never forget playing it. I was in my level 1 class.
Okay.
And it's where two people say a word, right? Like you say car, I say pineapple.
Yeah.
And then the next two people have to come up with a word in between.
Yeah.
Right? And the beautiful thing my teacher said is, sometimes you'll get really close to the word and then you'll go way far.
Right.
And then you'll come back, but eventually you'll get to that same word.
Yeah.
But every step along the way was necessary for you to get to where you were going. And that stuck with me forever.
Yeah, that's a really good teacher moment on her part, it sounds like.
Because I have been some improv where we didn't get anything.
Right.
We hired a private coach one time when I was in that world.
Yeah.
We had a session. I think we all paid, it was like $50 from 8 people. So he was making for an hour.
Right.
We didn't get a single note the entire time.
Yeah.
And I walked out at 45 minutes. I was like, I didn't say anything. I didn't make a big show of it, but I was so disappointed.
Sure.
But for people that like, obviously some people have those experiences with improv, but it is such a beautiful art form. And
I really think so. And I really think you'll enjoy and even love Trust Us.
I'm so excited to watch.
This is all made up, because I mean, I don't personally, I've met, but like I wouldn't say I personally know either TJ or Dave.
Mm-hmm.
But TJ in particular, in this movie, and this is the part that makes me cry, in the movie, just talks about like, because he's heralded as this like absolute genius, which he is. But what he says in the movie, and I've read like he said it in other places, is like, I need it way more than this art form needs me. Like, I am my, like I'm my best self. This is like so antithetical to what I would be without it.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, that's like what really resonates for me, because it's so outside, not necessarily of my nature, because I don't really believe that my nature is not that, but just it's outside of how I've been conditioned to believe that I needed to be in order to survive.
That's really interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And law school brought me right back to like, and you do need to be this way to survive.
Right.
And I don't think that's the only way to do law school. I don't think it's the way that I taught law school, at least not all the time, because I taught for 9 years. So I think, I grew as a teacher in those 9 years. Side note, Gabe Malika's dad had me at my first big class.
Oh, that's
literally.
So nice.
I was 27 years old, and I was teaching 137 night students. So they were like my dad.
Yeah.
Times 137 of them.
Yeah.
And me at 27. Teaching. I was so scared.
That is incredible.
It was crazy.
And so, because I do want to ask this question too, like in those settings, because I do think, like I always talk about too, like I was a tour guide in college, and there's so many transferable skills.
So was my wife.
Oh, really? I love. Yeah. Oh, where'd you go?
Maryland.
Maryland's okay. Oh, I love that campus. I have my close friends went there. I visited all the time.
I love that you're like, the aquarium is right next to the monument, and you just take a hard left.
That dining hall.
Giving tours of every campus.
Yeah, just like around.
That's fun. I mean, to me, that seems like fun crowd work. That if someone says that they've also been a tour guide, to then compare
100%, like stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, the compass in the middle of campus or whatever.
And sometimes you have to dig yourself out of holes. Like I was doing a tour one time, and there were the frat guys that were next to us, and they screamed on my tour, "Send us your daughters." Which is like so freaking douchey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to like dig myself out of that.
Wow.
And so, because you can't be like, because we want more of the female perspective. So, it's like you can't be, which was hard. But I did bring that up because in terms of like the academia world and teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Steve Martin says like in his book, Born Standing Up, it's like teaching is so close to comedy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so is that like kind of where you kind of got to like your footing almost, would you say? Or like,
I mean, you wouldn't think so from watching my early tapes. And I think that that's because I was a very scared law professor. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I was alone in that. Like, it's not like if I teach something now, I'm teaching something from the perspective of, I know this thing, or I've worked really hard to get decent enough at this that I can share my process with you because I've had to have so many steps.
Sure.
And I'm totally willing to admit the vulnerability of how many steps it took, which is honestly why I'm a good teacher, right? I was not that way as a law professor, as a 27-year-old, scared for my job and my life and my precious ego at 27.
Oh, my God.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
And the thing is that legal academia, I think, and I'm fine to go on the record with this, promotes that. I don't think that, like, not to say that there aren't law professors who do an amazing job of teaching, and also they're brilliant, and also they're like relatable and vulnerable and all that. Mm-hmm. Sure. I can't think of a single name. But I mean, I don't doubt that person exists, but like the vast majority, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like 1L, the movie. It's like, it's from the 70s. It's based on a book, I think, also from the 70s, Scott Turow. And it's like a story of a person who was going through his first year at Harvard Law School. Mm-hmm. And it's brutal. And like, again, I mean, legal academics, like even Legally Blonde. I mean, you know, it's like the professor character, even though there was a soft side to the guy. I mean, it's a literal movie, but like, there's not coddling. It's very intense.
Yeah.
And it's not a place where, like, first of all, you're not promoted on the basis of good teaching. And there's like articles and a lot of frustrated law professors who are really good teachers who are like, my teaching evaluations are amazing and I wasn't promoted. And it's like, yeah, because that's not the currency of that world. The currency of that world is, what did you write? Where did it get published? How many Supreme Court cases cited it? And therefore, what are you doing for the optics of our school? And moreover, how are our bar passage rates? Like, it's all stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's like basically capitalism just running rampant through another industry. And is that the problem of any one specific person? No, it's like a systemic thing. But, the only reason I'm going on about it is because I think that it affected the way that I was at that time in my life, which was scared into submission to be good enough to get tenure, get promoted, write enough, like do all this stuff. It was hugely pressurized.
I only asked this because you used the word defensive with your home life. Do you think like you found yourself in that world because it was familiar?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good like therapist question.
I did a semester and a half of therapy school.
You did?
I did.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did.
Wow.
I'm very embarrassed to say, but
why?
It is out there. So my first semester, nailed it. A in my class. Sure. It was clinic work.
Right.
My professor said to me, Matt, if I had to recommend someone, one of my students to one of my patients on disposition alone, I would recommend you.
Yeah.
It meant the world to me. I still have that email saved.
Yeah.
Next semester, Liz, I was such an idiot. I was working as a vice president at Citi. Okay. I was going to grad school, and I was doing stand-up at night. Wow. I was like, I'm going to do it all, and then I'm going to become a therapist, and I'm going to work during the day so I can have flexibility, and I'm going to do everything.
Right. How old were you?
Oh, this was last year.
Okay. But how old are you?
Oh, I'm 29.
Right.
Just turned 29.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
that's
so 27. Oh my God. Right around the time we're talking about.
Because the way that you're saying the like, and I could do this, and I could do that, and I could. I'm like, that sounds like late 20s.
Yeah. It's spot on.
Yeah.
And so I was burnt out.
Right.
And unfortunately, for my second semester, I had a 10, 15-page paper due. Yeah. I had a presentation, whatever. I used ChatGPT to help me write some of my essay, and they ran it through the system.
I love this story.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
Is I remember going to check my grade, and I was so burnt out, I said to myself, and I'm not making this up, this isn't movie cheese or anything. I said, if I open this up and they catch me for cheating, I'm just quitting grad school, and I'm just going to try comedy.
Yeah.
I got the email from my professor, and she was like, I ran it through the system. It's half whatever. And they were very generous to me. They said I could stay because it's a very expensive school.
Yeah.
So, but I literally, I went outside, smoked a little weed with my girlfriend at the time, fiance now.
Yeah.
And we just had a really open, honest talk. She was like, well, why did you do that?
Right.
And I was like, because if it was something I really wanted to do, I wouldn't cheat at it.
Sure.
Right. So, and not to say like, so I ended up, I'm on leave technically.
Yeah.
They didn't expel me or anything, but that's
wow.
So it's just so funny you brought it up as like a therapist question. Yeah.
Totally. I had a thing just to relate so that you don't feel alone about plagiarizing. I have 2 plagiarizing stories. One is at my bat mitzvah, okay, where I plagiarized the speech, and the reason I did it is because I was in a school where everybody was more religious than me. And so they all had like, whole bookstores full of like Hebrew books and stuff, and parents that like knew what they were doing, right? About like the Parsha, like the chapter of the Torah or whatever.
Sure.
And my parents were not that way because I went to a more religious school than my parents were, because they wanted us to like know what we were doing wrong at home, I guess, or whatever. But anyway, so my parents were like, well, school will help, and school doesn't help with your bat mitzvah. And then school, not that they said it, but they're like, everybody's parents do the bat mitzvah. So I was left with one book that we had in my house. I don't even know why. It was probably a gift. It was probably like a free, like tote bag, like goodie bag from a synagogue dinner. And it had like a half a page on every parsha. Okay. And I did the thing where I was like, is it plagiarizing if you write it with a thesaurus right by your side and it says like understood, and I'm like comprehended, right? Like in order to change a couple things. And so, and honestly, like I delivered the speech. I'm looking down the whole time. I have the video. Sure. Obviously, I recommend that as well. In addition to Trust Us, this is all made up. This will all be in the show notes. And, but anyway, so at my bat mitzvah video, or at the party, but like the guy, we had a video guy, and like I think the video guy knew like nobody's gonna ever want to see this because this is like a scared puppy delivering this speech, and so he just starts testing the zoom function on his lens, like to see how it was gonna work for the rest of the night when people would be dancing
I
or whatever.
You were gonna say like cut to other people.
Oh
like,
no!
Oh no!
Yeah, I think Netflix is gonna want the crowd for this. So anyway, this was in 1991, so real anachronism there. But anyway, so that's one.
Yes.
Plagiarize my bat mitzvah
And by the
speech.
way,
yeah.
This makes me feel so much better to be
good.
seen in this way. Because I was like, I feel really ashamed of it for like a while.
Really? Don't. I mean, feel whatever you want.
Right.
But like, I don't think you should. And the other was I think it was linguistics.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like also a semester, like you were saying, where I was like, I'm going to take 5 classes and da-da-da. I don't remember even why. But one of them was this linguistics class and it had a paper. And it was like, I just like didn't connect with the material at all.
Sure.
And I don't even remember what the paper was about. I think it was, second language acquisition. How I remember that, I have no idea. Must be this mushroom tea that I'm drinking. If we were sponsored by Four Sigmatic, wouldn't that have been an amazing product placement?
That would be.
Okay.
Last week it was Diet Coke. This time it was. We had it front facing just so, just in case people are out there. No, that's
the
amazing.
Thingy's over there, but I can show it. You can do it in the clip. Four Sigmatic. Because here's the thing. I do a lot of improv on stage, and so I jump topic to topic.
Sure.
And I've been getting, as it turns out, better at stand-up. And I also want to allow myself to jump topic-wise.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, I have to trust myself to be able to know where we were. And so, like, I've had the experience a few different times, like last night in particular is one that I remember because it is last night, where I couldn't have been doing better. And there were like a couple of moments where I'm like, wait, why was I saying this? And then I didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I thankfully, like, I don't mean this as a flexy story, but it still was really great. But in terms of the satisfaction I would have gotten creatively to like, and for them, for the audience to like tie it all up, I just am like, I want to allow myself the tangents, but I have to get better about knowing where everything is because like that's the show.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm drinking.
Do you ever struggle with like,
yes,
because
whatever
you're so
it
in
is.
it.
Literally, yes.
You're like 100%.
Right.
Are you ever on stage and it's like, do you ever, because you're so present in that moment, do you ever go back and it's like, did I do that bit? Did I?
All the time.
Oh my God. That's.
Well, Caitlin Palufo really changed my life the other night because she said, we were in a green room together and she was like 70-30. And I was like, what? And she's like 70% focused, 30% present.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
Wow.
And I think she may have attributed it to another person, and I don't remember who that was, so sorry. But I attribute it to Caitlin.
Yeah.
And I've thought about it. Well, I guess last night I didn't think about it enough, but I wish I did.
No, that's a really great.
Yeah.
It is, especially for me, it is sometimes hard to strike that balance.
Right.
And I love with the 30% too, because like the whole point is to make it seem like you're just thinking of it now.
Yeah.
And I know for me, sometimes I can make it seem kind of rote.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But
well, and that's the thing too, is, I read this thing about public speaking once. I think it was in The Magic of Thinking Big, which is that with public speaking, people go nuts about, do I sound nasal? Do I stutter? Do I, something like that? And the guy is like, none of that matters. 2 things and only 2 things matter when you're speaking. 1, know what you want to say. 2, have a burning desire to say it.
wow.
Right? That's a mic drop.
Yeah.
And I think putting that together with Caitlin 70-30 is knowing what you want to say. You have to.
Yeah.
That's the 70.
Right.
Right? And I would say that sometimes I don't, because I just want to get up there and connect.
Sure. I understand.
And like, that's just real. But having like wanting to get across, like, I want to share this story because I think it would be funny or whatever it is, but I really want to do this bit or that joke or whatever. And I have a burning desire and I know which one it is and I really want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then I can allow the room to infiltrate.
Yeah.
But if I'm just going up, and I'm a very porous, energetically, I think, person, where it's like if you, not you, because you're great. I have no issue with your energy.
That's very sweet.
I mean, not at all.
That means the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you have great energy.
Yep.
Some people don't.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I have been in situations where I've allowed that to totally wreck me.
Oh, no.
You know, but I had this experience.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Here it is. So, 2 different comedy clubs, 3 years apart, both equally intimidating to me. First booked set. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, before my first book set at that scary comedy club to me at the time, I'm sitting next to a comic. They say, ooh, this is a terrible room. It's really hard. And they're really anxious. And I'm like, oh, God, it's a terrible room. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
By the way, they were going up right before me. Absolutely destroyed. Couldn't have been a better set. I proceed to completely bomb.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, I had this experience, which is host of the show telling me, you know, sometimes people say this is a bad room. It's actually not. It's a great room.
Wow.
It's just like really intimate.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, you know, they want the other room. Nope, not true. They know what they're getting. It's fun. And I had that. Then I'm in the room. Another comic comes next to me and says, oh, I hate this room. I've never had a good set in this room. This is the worst. They want to be in the other room. And it was like, I had a flashback to that 3 years ago. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just extract myself from this situation. And I was polite. I was just like, oh, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Because also like that comedian had a question about like whether they were next and whether I was hosting. And the answer to both of those was no, and they weren't even on the show. But I was like, okay. And then I went back to the first person, the host, who was like so great energetically. And I was just like hanging out with that person. And then came back eventually to the room. By the way, then the host person tells this person, you're not even on the show. Like, come back in an hour. What are you doing? Or not, you know,
no,
whatever
I understand.
They said.
Yeah.
But and then I proceeded to have a really great set.
I love it.
And I don't, you know, I mean, the how it goes in some sense is like the sort of secondary detail of it. The real kind of learning moment was like taking myself away from that energy.
Absolutely.
So all of that, to me, that's what I mean by porous energy. And I think that, you know, just learning like, oh, I don't have to be around the person who makes me feel that way, especially like ever, but also especially right before I'm going to do a thing that I need to be in some kind of a zone.
100%. And there's, again, I relate to this as a very sensitive person.
Right.
And I feel like we're similar in this way where it's like, because I love that word porous.
Right.
Where
it was my therapist word. I didn't.
Oh.
Well, she said it this week.
It's fantastic. And I'm going to put that in my semester and a half tool belt of therapy.
Good. Yeah.
But you really do have to teach yourself to extract, because I know I'm just kind of re-saying what you're saying, but you have to.
You're a plagiarizer. That's why
I know exactly. It's just I'm gonna put this all into ChatGPT with the laptop that's right here, so it's gonna be. But you really like, and it's so great for me to hear. Going back to the 70-30 rule and the fact that if you need to know what you want to say, and you have to have a burning desire to say it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I told you this, but on April 4th, I'm running my solo show here for the first time, which is amazing.
Wow.
And in that same way, I ran the first 25 minutes in November.
Okay.
Went great.
Yeah.
And here I was like, you know, rehearsing in my room, like, am I going to get the words right? The words.
Sure.
When I'm on stage, I just found myself riffing, being present in the room, extrapolating on some story, just because people were enjoying it. But to your point, it was, I knew what I wanted to tell them. Yeah. Which is I love
huge.
that so much.
I wish I was in town to see it. Are you going to tape it?
I'm going to tape it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you send it to
me?
me?
Oh, Liz, that would mean I'm
going to watch
so
it.
much to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to watch it.
That means so much.
Okay,
I can't even begin to tell you.
All right.
We can talk for hours.
Yeah.
And that has been apparent here.
Yeah.
I do want to get to your low point.
Okay,
which is what
great.
we did promise the people up top.
Yeah, totally. So, wouldn't it be crazy? It's like she said stillbirth and then they literally never talked about it. So November 10th of 2021, my wife was 33 weeks and 6 days pregnant with our first daughter, Leo Pearl. And
can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
So, like, what was your,
I
guess, like, growing up, what was your relationship? Did you always want to be a mom? Was that always on the radar for you?
I literally never thought about it.
That's really? Could you tell us more?
I mean, I think I just like, I didn't have that. Like right now, my own daughter is obsessed with babies. So, it's a thing, but also like every kid is different.
Sure.
But, so she looks at everybody. She's like, baby, 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 baby. And that is part of it. And hilariously, we were on the plane back from Mexico last week. We were away. And we're sitting behind this family that has like a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy. They're brothers. Mm-hmm. And she makes no distinction with the term baby.
Sure.
And she's right behind the 5-year-old. And then she looks at the 5-year-old and she's like, baby.
Oh my
God.
And
he's like, maybe you mean my little brother. But she's a year and a half. So she's just, undeterred. No, baby. And
so
he's
funny.
like getting legit mad because he's like, this kid's calling me a baby. I'm not a baby. My brother's a baby. But anyway, and she's just baby. But I mean, she'll say it to like, if you have good enough Botox, she'll say you're a baby. Like she's calling everybody baby. Has her baby like doll with her at lunch. I mean, she's an amazing mom. So. Anyway, but I didn't have that. I didn't.
Sure.
I never went through that phase, to my knowledge. My parents have never, talked about that, and so I do think perhaps inherently some people just want to have that experience.
Sure.
I think I also knew I was gay and that I could outsource it, and so I do think that was like part of it, because I was like running around Brooklyn as like a 38-year-old single woman. You would have asked me at that time, it was like 2017, 18, do you want kids? And I would have told you, I don't know, which was a full lie that I was telling myself, because at 38 years old, if I wasn't freezing my eggs, looking into it, something like that, and I'm just going around thinking I'm going to get pregnant, like, why? Right? Meanwhile, my wife froze her eggs at 35.
Right.
Like a woman, or, a person who has that capacity, who wants to bear children.
Right.
That said, I've always loved kids. I've always been open to it. I've never not dated someone who was like very into having kids. Mm-hmm. And so the outsourcing, I mean, it's a joke, obviously, but like I come by it truthfully, mm-hmm. because everybody who I was with ever was like, and obviously kids, and like, you're okay, fine.
And you were sort of like just open to go for the ride,
right.
like,
sure, sounds good, right? But like, I, even before I was a sober person who thought deeply about like what things can I and can't I control, I still was more about the stuff that I could control, in the sense that I was like, well, I know how to have an education. I know how to like, figure out my schedule and like think about plans that way. That said, I mean, I think that if you're a person who really wants a baby, you're probably planning for that.
Right.
Like my wife was married before, took her money from like the wedding and subsequent divorce, put that straight into freezing her eggs. Because that was like what she wanted.
Right.
It never would have occurred to me.
Gotcha.
And that's just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That said, I love being a parent.
Yeah.
Like I have never thought I would. And to get to the stillbirth, and I know this is jumping ahead a little, so the thing about the stillbirth is that it's sort of two stories. one of which is a tragedy and one of which is not, which is one, our firstborn daughter, Leo Pearl of blessed memory, showed no signs of life at the moment of her birth, which was also when she was pronounced officially dead.
Right.
Terrible. That's a tragedy. Also, around the same time, I was supposed to tape my first comedy album that I thought was going to be called Born Sorry. And it was about all these, my wife is pregnant, we're about to have a baby, all that stuff. I'm the non-birthing female parent. I was like, okay, that's a perspective that's rarer. Perhaps, I was like thinking it was going to be this groundbreaking thing. Ugh. But anyway, fine. But I was thinking that way. And I was supposed to tape it. And when we got the news that, not that the baby was stillborn, but even prior to that, when it's like, no, Karen's going to have to deliver early because, and I'll get into some specifics, like just because like, I feel like it's just less cryptic.
100%.
But like, we got the news that she had elevated blood pressure and signs of potential preeclampsia, such that we knew she was going to have to deliver early. And so that was what prompted me to postpone the taping.
Okay.
Because I was like, okay, well, if that's going to happen, then we might have a baby. I'm not going to do a taping.
Yeah.
I didn't know, obviously.
Right. That would be
that like all things funny were going to like leave my brain for this like period of time when nothing was funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That said, there was that time because, a moment like that is horrific and shocking and scary. And like, Karen's life was also in peril.
Yeah, that's
because her blood pressure was so elevated. She delivered Leo in like essentially 5 minutes. Like they call it a bat out of hell delivery. And she delivered in triage. Like it was crazy.
Were you in the room for her?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. I was in the room. And, hugely scary.
Yeah,
and then she was on a magnesium drip, which is like really just, I've never been on it, but it's a 24-hour IV drip that's like really uncomfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like hell and stuff. And but you need that in order to get your blood pressure down.
Okay.
So all of this was like just terrible, terrible, terrible. And we're sitting, just us, basically. People were allowed to come a little bit, but like, it was just us for a lot of that day. And then stuff started happening that was like kind of funny. And then like one thing would happen, another thing would happen, another thing would happen. I'm like, and we would laugh.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like you feel bad laughing, but then it's like, that's the thing. A comedian is not a comedian because they're funny. A comedian is a comedian because of the commitment to write it down.
And 100%.
And so all these things started happening. And at some point I'm like, oh God, am I going to have to start a file for these jokes? Like what kind of a monster am I? So I just made this file called Way Too Soon.
Yeah.
And I canceled all my shows. Were you going to say something? I feel like I cut you off.
No, I wasn't going to say that. You know, it's just because I was thinking about this before we had this conversation.
Okay.
Because one of my questions for you was going to be, did you find the comedy in this dark period of your life?
Yeah, because and again, I don't think it's any kind of special talent. I think it is just nothing more than that commitment to just noticing it.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's like, first of all, the tension is so high you have to laugh.
Right.
And actually Robbie, to bring back another example, and Robbie's like famous enough that now I feel self-conscious that I don't mean it as a name drop at all. I just remember what was the joke that because I was on the phone, she called and then we were texting and it was something about like, oh, there was this social worker, and the social worker at the hospital, it's like your big punishment was having to sit through this social worker go through, like, she's like, I'm really sorry that you've lost your daughter, but I have so many pamphlets that I have to explain. And it's like there's so many Zoom bereavement situations, and it's like, don't think that other family members aren't affected by that. Like if your second cousin is upset, like we have a Zoom for that person. And it was just crazy. And
it's like haven't we been through enough?
Right. And I think what happened was that Robbie called maybe like right after the social worker left or something, where I was like, I got to tell you about this. And I remember that she was saying, she's like, and already thinking of jokes, whatever.
Well, yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I mean, I think that the other elements of a comedian is that, like, to a degree, comedy inherently is a coping mechanism.
100%.
And so, yeah, you're going to think about stuff like that. So anyway, so that's one example of quite a few things that were just happening.
Yeah.
And I was just noticing them and like writing them down as they happened. I really wasn't adding much flourish. And like I was saying, I canceled all these shows, which, side note, like the funniest thing is because, especially at that level of comedy, which was maybe like a half step beneath where I arguably might be now or whatever. It's all fake. But you have like 1,000 people to write to if you have any semblance of a schedule of comedy. It's not like you don't have one out of office to work.
Right.
You have like 80 people who are, schlubs like you, who you have to tell them.
Right. You have to give them that,
I can't come to the bar with 3 people and I need to let them know. Right.
Of course.
So anyway, so I had like, however many of I had a bunch of those types of notes to send around. And what was funny was that sometimes when you start a message by, hey, so sorry, but my wife delivered, and then it was very unfortunately our first daughter, but she was stillborn, and they don't read, they just say deliver, and they're like, congratulations. And so I had a few of those. So, but that's funny that it happened. It's not funny between you and that person necessarily. And I didn't get into it with anybody, but that was something that I'm like, well, I'm going to write that down. So there was stuff like that where it's just like, oh my God, like these things are happening.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I canceled everything, but I had one show that I was like a co-producer on, but it was mostly my friend Mike Kaplan, who's an amazing comedian and extremely amazing friend. And I didn't mean extremely like he's an extremely amazing, he's an equally good friend as he is a comedian, which is phenomenal at both.
Right.
And so anyway, and we're very close and we have been for many years at this point. So anyway, I didn't tell him. I mean, I told him that it happened. He was one of the first people I told. But I didn't say, and I don't want to do our show. I left that one open because I was like, well, maybe I will do that show, which was like in 3 weeks. But I'll do the jokes about it 3 weeks out. And that'll be the only show I do for the rest of 2021. And I'll give myself however much time I need to like really get back to it. But that'll be like a thing. And so, and I filmed it, and it wasn't, I mean, there were people actually, like, I remember Caitlin Palufo was on that show and she was like, great set. And I was like, oh, was it? And in a way it might have been. I mean, I do have the tape, but like, it was just so raw.
Yeah.
That it was like, okay, like we're in it. And so in my opinion, it wasn't like great, but I really knew what I wanted to say, and I did have a burning desire to say it. Yeah. I was just also in a moment of acute grief and shock still.
Right.
But that was also part of my artistic choice of wanting to like do that one show. The reason I bring it up is because you asked about the desire to have kids. And in that set, that one that was, I think, November 28th, so 18 days after this happened of 2021, I was in between the jokes. I just was like saying, and I said this line that I was like, I don't think I realized how much I wanted a kid until I lost one.
Yeah.
And I think that was true because, like, if Karen would have said, we're not having kids, I would have been fine. Because ultimately, like, whatever Karen wanted was fine with me. And even though it happened to both of us, I think, like, in a way it happened more to her. And so I really would have been fine. That said, the experience of loss and grief and grappling with the absence of parenthood in that specific way.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen has said to me, she's like, you know, I'm not grateful that Leo was stillborn. And I also have this insight that you are the mother that you are to our daughter because Leo was stillborn, which makes me feel like just the worst nightmare of a person, but I kind of am.
No, I don't know. Stop.
But I'm just, no, I don't, I mean, obviously that's like said somewhat in jest and probably too self-deprecating, but like, I just mean that I guess I recognize, yes, the preciousness of life, but I don't know that was specifically what I struggled with, because I've always been like completely safety first, like just a total worrywart.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's that, but I think like just recognizing that, like, enjoying these years and just like what we didn't get with Leo is what we do get now. And just like the intense gratitude of that is like, I mean, it's like woven into my fabric. And I think that's because of the grief.
Right.
You know, so like, I mean, because listen, I can look at like I'm tired, I'm busy, I can have that conversation about parenthood. But like, only to a point.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I remember the feeling of deep pain when I didn't have a child after we had a child birth that was also death. I remember that.
Yeah.
And so like getting so bent out of shape about like, like I can't believe that we have to wash bottles or we have to whatever. It's like we get to, like we really get to. And also to bring it back to the flat tire, it's just like, it's a little hard for me. Like in the moment of getting the flat tire, I was with my mom. We had a hotel room. We weren't going to use it because it was going to snow the next day, but it actually wasn't going to snow until 11 in the morning. So ultimately, we called USAA because my father-in-law is a retired lawyer from JAG. I don't think I deserve the membership either, but it's great. We call them. They're like, we'll come the next morning. We already paid for the hotel parking. He comes the next morning. We're having breakfast. He's changing the tire.
Yeah.
I give him $20. We're on our way. By the way, my tire, I think 4 years is rubber for an anniversary. I think that's true. So I got my wife tires.
By the way, as a couple who recently got a car, the most romantic thing you could get.
It was pretty nice. And I waited for them to be like installed or whatever you say. But I did that this summer at Mavis, another sponsor of the pod. And I did wait forever, which they probably don't want me to say in the ad, but I like to keep it real. I do love Mavis because I paid for a warranty.
We're just reading copy at this point.
After the warranty, after I got the flat tire, I went over to Mavis and they were like, well, you have the insurance. So I only had to pay $77.70 total. And then plus the $20 for the tip to the guy.
Wow.
$97.20. Honestly, I'd recommend getting a flat tire. So that's the thing about gratitude is like, unfortunately, if you like have it and you recognize that like things aren't so bad, that it just sort of like, that's why I'm great in those kinds of moments is because like I just could I get to a place of being that annoyed about a flat tire? I guess. But I know too much now to let myself.
Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, again, it was a years-long journey because, like, you know, I took improv and quit my law job and was in therapy much longer than before 2021. But I think that experience did, like, kind of nail into me, like, if it's not like this, and other things are like this, but a flat tire isn't.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it changed me in that way.
First off, what you said is beautiful.
Oh,
and I
thank you.
I mean, it's incredibly important for me to hear too, just because I am the guy to lose my mind at the flat tire.
Oh, real? Call me.
And I am. Oh, you're the best.
Yeah.
I literally and I'm trying to get better with it. And granted, I have.
Sure.
And the only thing that I can relate to, like the flat tire, would be we have a dog, my fiance and I.
Yeah.
Very sick dog.
This
dog goes to the vet so much. Had surgery when she was under 2 years old.
Okay.
I think we've had her. And so much money.
Yeah.
So much money just like to spend.
Do you have insurance?
We do have pet insurance.
Good.
Thank God. Which,
yeah.
Like I always recommend to people getting pets.
Me too.
It's saved us so much, but we used to get, and again, it's like, you know, it's my upbringing and stuff like that, but I used to get this like tense feeling in my chest.
Yeah.
And because there was one period where she went to the vet and the emergency room 3 times in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And nothing was getting better.
Right.
And she's upset because she loves this dog so much. And not to say that I don't, but she has a very special bond with this dog. So she's worried and I can't bring her down and everything like this.
Yeah.
To the point where it got so bad. I'm not proud of this, but we were on the phone. I was on the phone. I was screaming, walking down, just like trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
What we have done to this point, though, is we have such a wonderful relationship where we talked about it and, you know, we kind of got to the core about, you know, like why it bothers me and stuff like that. And it's just because like it really comes down to like sometimes we feel alone in it.
Yeah.
And which I want to bring back to the stillbirth in a sec because I'm very curious to hear about the joint going through it together. But just to finish this, like we're at a place now. She had to go last week.
Yeah.
It was $1,000.
Yeah.
And no fight.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
It has been it has been fine every time since we took her.
Right.
She's better now.
Yeah.
We did the medicine, everything, you know, so but all that to say, like, I'm getting there with the flat tire.
Right.
But obviously there's still change. But I do want to talk about, because I'm very curious.
Well, and I also just want to say,
ahead.
It's not like I would never be able to get bent out of shape over it. Because at the same time as I say that, it's like I can go nuts about, you know, something else that's like not a big deal. But I'm not even thinking of examples. But like, I just mean like, I'm a little bit joking about how good I am in some situations. And it's not a total joke. And it does come in all seriousness from the sources that I've cited for it in my own life. But also like, I'm a nightmare too, you know, like it's,
you know, and the thing, like, I think we need to keep in mind too, right?
Yeah.
It's always cumulative. It's always like,
you
know, you woke up just with maybe 2 hours less sleep than you normally get.
Oh my God. The sleep thing is crazy.
Well, especially as a parent. I can't imagine.
Oh, I'm fine.
That's really?
Yeah.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
Just to like go a little off topic here. I do hear from parents, it's like most of them, maybe not most.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like not as bad as they think with the sleep.
Yeah.
As I've heard the horror stories.
I really, I'm okay.
Okay.
I really am okay. But I, first of all, like we did a sleep class. It's taking care of babies, but they support causes that are not great. So, but it is the best class. It's so good. So
I'm so curious. What do you do in the class?
Well, it's these videos and they're very good, but it's like, you know, she's super Republican. It's like the woman who does the class, she looks like an anchor on Fox News. And so it's like really funny, but it's so good. And somebody recommended it to me, but they're like, ugh. It's like all these like liberal lesbians who are like, oh, it's so bad, but it's so good, and, you know, whatever. But anyway, it is really good. So she has slept through the night. I mean, every now and then, like we were away in Puerto Vallarta, which is like a different time zone and a lot of traveling. So like, it took a while, but like she slept through the night last night, and so she's a pretty good sleeper. So we're lucky in that way.
It's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
I do.
Knock on wood.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine.
And there's never wood. Yeah. I've complained about it before, so but
it's something we're working on here at the studio.
It's like you have to carry around your own mezuzah, just to have some wood. Anyway, so I'll get it on my way out. Yeah.
I do, from the perspective of being in it with Karen, your wife.
Yeah.
What was that like going through it? I mean, like,
yeah.
And again, like, I just want to hear it, like, in terms of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some statistic allegedly that like people who go through, a stillbirth, like get divorced or whatever. We didn't get divorced, and we have a really strong relationship, in my opinion. We also like engaged help. So we have our couples therapist. We went through a couple that were not great. We have a couples therapist now that we're obsessed with. She's so elegant. It's crazy. Like, all we do is we're like, what do you think Kim is wearing? Like, we love Kim. But we had Marv and Jen, and like they sucked. I mean, Marv had like never met lesbians in his entire life. He was 86 years old.
He's like still coping with
what the two women do.
So which one of you's the man?
Right. And then Jen like just was not the right therapist for us. I mean, she vomited on camera once. Anyway, it's just you can't come back from that. You can't come back from a moment like that. It was really just a lot. So anyway, so we had that, but we also went to a bereavement group called Pockets of Light. It is also a New Jersey local situation, even though it was on Zoom.
Okay.
But it's these two people, I don't remember their names, and hilariously perhaps, because I don't. So okay, it's a bereavement group. Everybody there has like recently lost a child, like in the context of pregnancy. Okay. So their names, and the facilitators' names, but the facilitators are like less important in a way to the group, because they're sort of like there to facilitate, and everybody else is like, them. Those are like your class.
So you don't know the facilitators, like, okay.
Well, but you know who they are.
Okay.
But I never would remember, so I just called them woman and man.
Stop.
And so every time, because we continue to have a relation, it's a great group, and like I mean, this is like, I do mean this as an advertisement, like to the extent, God forbid, if you know somebody who is had to deal with pregnancy loss and stillbirth, like Pockets of Light, I think .org, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful people. They do fundraisers. They have bereavement groups. They have like all these things and whatever. Anyway, but I just for the life of me cannot remember the organizers' names. They do so much good. Woman and man. You'll know them because one's a woman and one, as it turns out, is a man. But I think like even if they heard this, they would find that funny.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing our job, honestly, if they don't know the facilitators, but like we're still friends with a lot of the people from the group, and it's astounding, how prevalent it is as an affliction.
Yeah.
And so, I used to have like these statistics memorized because I did pieces about this on stage, but I think it's like, I'm not going to try and get it right. It's like a lot more than you would think. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks like, oh my God, like it's my fault. I can't believe this happened to me, whatever. I mean, I've been like public about our journey, as has my wife. And so we get stories like all the time of like people we know, or somebody knows someone who this, God forbid, just happened to, not infrequently. Right. And so, if somebody's listening to this and that's true, like you aren't alone. I can assure you, you aren't alone, which sucks, but it's true.
And this is why you're the perfect podcast guest for this podcast, is because we end with what is something that you would tell someone out there who's going through something similar.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Which I think is so helpful. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's something that's on the rise as well. Like I think more people are experiencing that. I might be wrong, but it's definitely something that I don't know if it's taboo,
right?
But some people just like it's not really talked about. I don't think.
Yeah, because I think there's this thing of like maybe if we don't talk about it, it never happened, and because there is this sort of abstractness to the grief.
Yeah.
You know, like that was one of the things that I talked about when I was like talking about and writing about this like more is like, you know, when my dad died or even when our cat Mona died, which both happened at around the same time, I was able in either of those instances, not that they're equivalent, you know, I never mean to like minimize or maximize. I'm just like saying these things happen. But anyway, I could go to memories of my dad or even like, oh, Mona would have done this or whatever. Yeah. But we never knew Leo. And so it was this like strange grief in that it was this absence of hope grief. And it's like, it almost has this element to like similar to mental illness where you're like, am I making up that this happened kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because like the person like never lived, but they did exist. And what is existence if not coupled with life?
Yeah.
Right. And so like one of the I like this insight. I hate that I had it because I hate the life experience that caused it. But like for me, I grew up in an I love you family, which is to say like we say it all the time. We say it like 15 times before, you know, you leave the house to go to CVS and you know what I mean? Like I'm always, it's such a like trauma thing of like, you never know and whatever.
Yeah.
I'll say I love you because, you know, I don't want to say I didn't say it. And it's like crazy, but we do.
Sure.
All the time. I love you. And I and my brother at some point in our adulthood looked at each other and realized like, oh, when we say I love you, we mean please don't die. And and that was like a fun insight
which
to
is
have.
So relatable.
Oh yeah, totally thank you. And like, you know, and fine, okay, because for us growing up in our family, love and a fear of death were so inextricably linked to each other, because what is loving someone if you're not constantly worried that they might die?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that was my starting point. And as a result of that, as the premise of my life with respect to love, I had this thought that, well, I couldn't possibly love someone if the element of worrying about their death were absent from my relationship until I met Leo.
Yeah.
Because when I met Leo, she was already dead.
Yeah.
And I think that learning that love absent to fear of death is possible seems like, I know it is a big insight. I don't know exactly how it's changed me, because it does not make me fear death of loved ones less. But I do think that it has deepened my capacity for love. Sorry.
No, you don't have anything to apologize for. You're being incredibly generous by sharing this.
Yeah, no, I
mean, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And if I may be so bold as to say, what a wonderful gift from Leo.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's really, really beautiful.
Thanks, Matt.
Of course.
Anyway, you can find me on socials at...
But, okay, so listen, you did something very beautiful just now that I want to talk about, because we talked about when you were in this moment writing comedy.
Oh yeah.
Right? And if it's not when we need it the most in those moments, you know what I mean? Because I think the surface level interpretation can be that it's callous to even be thinking of stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's such a great point because I have never understood the like, oh, you couldn't joke about this thing. Because I don't think I'm a mean comedian. And I think that is maybe relevant because like a lot of comedy can be mean.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think because a lot of comedy can be mean, that maybe there's this conflation that if it could be mean, then it's really bad if we're being mean about stuff that's sensitive. And I get that. I don't think it's right because I don't care about like people. Like I care more about the ability for people to say whatever than I care about like curtailing speech.
Yeah.
For, I mean, that's just me, I guess. But I mean, not just me, but like that is my take on it. That's my opinion. But that said, I think I really don't come at comedy at all from a place of desiring to be mean. And so the idea that it would be offensive or that there's this too soonness to joking has always been strange to me because I'm like, but that is when to joke. That's when you need to joke.
100%. And the whole point of this podcast, the reason I started is because I wanted to do with it what comedy does, which is that it makes people feel less alone.
Yeah.
Because when you make that joke,
right,
when you say you can follow me on social, like in that tense moment,
right,
someone out there who's going through it, like you're bringing them back. Like you're bringing, you know what I mean? It's just so beautiful.
That does relate to a thought I had actually in the context of processing the grief of Leo's stillbirth, which was like, because people sometimes were asking me like, oh, when are you going to do comedy again? And I was like, the question is not like, when am I going to do comedy again? The question is like, when can I laugh again?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the thing. And that's like, the Jon Stewart post 9/11 speech thing. Like it's not about like the doing, it's about the letting.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, sometimes the answer to that is like, maybe it's that day, but not because you're laughing, like making fun of something, like jeering, right? That's not like that. Honestly, I mean, I think all types should exist, but like, I'm not going to watch that. I don't want to watch that about anything.
No, 100%.
Right?
At its truest form, it is expression.
Right.
It is you sharing this very real thing.
And I think that like, because, this will really bring it back. Like, because I think my comedic voice does come from my mother. I mean, my mother, I think in her funny moments is incredibly generous and is incredibly like wants to make everybody at the Rosh Hashanah party or the Passover dinner feel like they belong because she didn't feel like she belonged.
Right.
And like that's like, I think where I get it for me in my best moments. Like my best friend Shira, who's again one of the funnier people in the chat. I mean, they all are. They're so good. It's like, I mean, if only the world could see this chat. It's just bananas. But anyway, so it's really good. I don't know why I said bananas, but she said to me, she's like, your like good comedy energy is like, hey, I like your shirt. and she knows me since I'm 6 years old. But like, that's like, I think it was one of the best notes I ever got.
As someone who was there for your special taping.
Oh, thanks. Thank you
which by the way, yes, and we can plug at the end,
sure.
But spot on.
Oh, thanks.
And I mean that as a very big compliment, but that is, again, you can't get a better note.
I know. It was such a generous note. It was such a great note. Yeah. Because like, like for me, I mean, I've gone through such iterations with like trying to figure out like how I'm funny and how, whatever. And that one, I don't think I could do better than that.
Just captures it beautifully.
Oh, thanks.
Like it's just 100% because it is so.
She's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in the chat. She has to be.
Yeah. Well, everyone in the chat really brings a different talent and energy, and it's just
which it's essential, and and we'll bring it back full circle again.
Sure.
I do love that. I did kind of come in, and like admittedly jokingly, I was like, no, I hate like that I'm the least funniest person in my family.
Oh, right. I forgot that was
I
where it came from.
I know,
Yeah.
but just to bring it back, like, I am so blessed to be surrounded by such funny people.
I feel that way.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And with good taste.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
Totally.
And I'll give you just like a brief example, but my younger brother, we joke, he's not only has he taken over as the best looking one in the family, which was devastating to me, but I'm engaged now. It's fine.
You're very good looking.
It is time. I appreciate that very much. I needed to hear
adorable.
That more. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But it is time to pass the crown on to him as someone who's betrothed.
Yeah.
But we were.
Yeah, it's wasted on you at this point.
Exactly. It's fine. It's time to move on.
What am I gonna do with all these looks?
We'll just give it to him. It's fine.
Right.
But we were out to dinner, and it was before we were waiting to be seated, and my older brother takes a mint and he just pops it in his mouth, and my younger brother, I don't know if this will be funny, but he goes, "Isn't that an after dinner mint?" And my older brother's like, "Yeah." He's like, "So why are you having it now?"
Right.
Liz?
Yeah.
We all died. It was like, and just the timing, obviously, and like,
right.
And I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I'll never have a moment like that with my. Not never, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I get.
Well, I love an organic moment like that. My favorite one, Westwood Diner. It's got to be 1990. My family is sitting at a four-top, super packed diner. I mean, I don't know how they're doing now, but at the time, it was the place to be.
Sure.
And there's a two-top right next to my family. These two women come over, and one of them is about to sit down. Like, so we're sitting here. They're right here.
Okay.
She's sitting down. She looks at my family. She's like, "Sorry, I'm late." Can I tell you? When people ask me who my favorite comedian is, I'm like, "Sorry, I'm late, girl," from the Westwood Diner. Okay, like 30 years ago.
Amazing.
It was so good. Or
11
however many years ago
10.
that is. Like, what is it, 50? I don't know. But
we try not to think about it.
but anyway, what's funny too about that is, so my brother was there, and we, love this woman. We love this story. This story is like in the fabric of our relationship, whatever. But what's also fun, and you can feel very free, as can you, to try this wherever you go. So the thing about that moment is you want to then be, "Sorry, I'm late, girl," to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking about her decades later, right?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to be someone's Subway story, right? To take,
100%.
That's a reference to like the campaign now of like, don't be someone's Subway story. That's all over. But anyway, no, because so where this leads is that Vic and I, my brother, we have this ongoing joke for like basically our whole lives.
Sure.
Where we'll try a "Sorry, I'm late," and 9 times out of 10 does not land. Because you want it too bad. She was like, presumably, I mean, wouldn't it be ironic and interesting if she's just going around to diner after diner and it's got to be packed and this is her devastating line. It's her life's work. She's "Sorry, I'm late, girl." But anyway, so we try it all the time. Then there's like the story of how it didn't work, and it's just fun for everybody. Side note, what a great joke to put on your tombstone. I mean, you can't do better than "Sorry, I'm late."
What a gift. And I think about that all the time, because you do, like, she doesn't know.
Oh, she has no idea.
And she has no idea.
Right.
And she like doesn't even remember that.
Yeah.
It's, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Oh,
Liz.
thanks.
Liz, this was a joy.
It really was.
Liz, tell the people where they can follow you.
Oh, yeah. Just dearlizglazer.com is my website. Okay. Like you're writing me a letter, dearlizglazer.com, which, by the way, you can. There's a contact form, sign up for whatever they put there. Not they. I mean, it's this guy, Ethan, and I really adore him, actually. Ethan Fox. I love him. So anyway, but that's where I live on the internet. And then at Liz Glazer on like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, LinkedIn. You know, I mean, she was a law professor. She's on LinkedIn.
She's there. We're going to do like tags and stuff like that for your social accounts. That'll be fine. But it's Dear Liz Glazer, like you're writing a letter, .com, which I love, by the way. That's a great website.
Thanks.
Very easy to remember.
Yeah, I think if you also search me, like, you know, just Google me.
It'll be.
You know what? That's what I recommend. Have it be 3 a.m, okay? Just look for whatever you want. But be obsessive about it. Not obsessive like offline, but like just be in there searching. That's what I would do. Right? That's what I would do. Can I tell you, I'm such an internet person in the sense of like I'm a good friend on the internet.
Okay.
Like I will love your story. I'm that, you know, like you're like, are we dating? Like that's I've like liked someone's Instagram post like while driving. Okay. That's how devoted.
You're like, I have to get this.
No. They need me. I see you. So anyway, but at school for the baby, daycare, they have like a private feed, and this happened where the teacher pulls me aside. She's like, "Hey, so." And they post. It's basically like Instagram, but like private and for
but just
the
parents,
daycare, right? So you can like things, right? And so she pulls me aside. She's like, "Hey, we really work hard on the posts, and I just I wondered if you could maybe talk to the other parents because the only person liking the post is you.
Oh no!
And we just want them to also like that." And I'm like, "Oh my God," because I'm liking you think there's a little baby, it's not just mine.
You're like commenting. You're like, "Yeah, Miles is at it again," all this stuff.
And he is. I was, but now it's better. Now people are doing it.
That's good, and that's very important. So that's why social media engagement very important.
Right,
from
totally.
Pre-K to now.
And if you want my bat mitzvah video, if somebody wants that, I will create a Patreon just for the purpose of putting the speech online. And what I'll throw in, I was very shy at my bat mitzvah, but when the Pointer Sisters Jump for My Love came on, even that broke through the wall of my shyness, and I did dance. So what I can do on the Patreon, okay, is I can clip some speech part, which is relevant to what we were talking about here, but I'll also find when I was dancing with Perry from Heart to Heart to Jump for My Love, okay?
And I want to put it out there.
Yeah.
If you can find the movie your dad was in from Israel, I think he was
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Let's
Oh, my
figure that
God.
out.
If somebody can do that, I'm going to hire you for something else.
That would be probably...
You're too talented.
Yeah, that would be very
for the
impressive.
world, if you can find that.
Liz, this was a joy.
Thank you, Matt. It really was.
I had so much fun. And
I did.
Here's to hoping we left you a little bit higher. All right, that's it.
That was
Liz.